Hello and welcome to NJ.com's live TV chat with Vicki Hyman. Today we'll be talking about last night's Real Housewives of New Jersey reunion, Part 2, the final season of Snooki and JWoww, and the last act for HBO's The Newsroom, which returns Sunday night. Vicki, we're going to chat Housewives first, but before you give your overall impressions from the evening, can I just say that this being in 3 parts is more than excruciating?
Yes, please do. We discussed this last time, but we want to talk about Santagate. We want to talk about a lot of things, and Andy keeps stopping us and putting it off. And then there's a lot of footage they're showing. I did kind of appreciate the really early Real Housewives footage that you saw Teresa in sort of like her glory, and I was like, oh, look at that. You know, now she's a felon. Before then, she was like, you know, she was just kind of fun and sweet.
Well, all right, but Teresa kind of gave a watch your back warning to her fellow castmates last night, saying that she's in this situation because of people on the show. What was that about?
It was very odd. When Andy asked how she felt to have Dina back on the show, because Dina was, of course, on the show in the first season, and Teresa was sort of reminiscing and said, "Oh, I thought it'd be like the first season, but of course, you know, look where I am now. Look, you know, I was so naive." And Andy says, "Well, is that the show's fault?" And she says, "No, it's not the show's fault, but, you know, there are people, you know, who got me into situations, people who, housewives, other people who caused trouble for her and Joe," which you can just take as, you know, I'm estranged from some of my friends, I'm estranged from some of my family, but the clips that they showed of Danielle Staub going after Teresa, when in fact actually Teresa's the one who kind of attacked Danielle Staub in that episode, and Jacqueline Loretta going after Teresa again, it seemed like they were all talking about money and jail, and so Bravo certainly made it seem like Teresa was blaming the other housewives for getting into her legal mess, which of course is not the other housewives' fault.
Well, all right, and message to Andy Cohen. Stop putting a pin in everything. He was like a DJ putting on a slow jam when everyone was dancing. Right?
Yes, that's exactly what it was like.
I mean, like, is there a reason why he just kept pushing everything to the side?
Well, I think they want to make the rumors about Teresa Preya and Nicole Napolitano's mother allegedly having sex at some point with Reno, who is Teresa's husband, sort of the dessert of the reunion show. Very, very appetizing.
Oh, well, all right. You know, it sort of looked to me that yes, Joe Gorga does blame Joe Giudice for all the legal troubles of the family.
It happened.
It happened. He shrugged his shoulders as it happened. But let's face it, Joe's a pretty successful contractor in his own right, probably way more successful than Joe Giudice. So he knows the deal. The guy blames him. He just didn't want to say it, right?
Yeah, but he's not going to say it. I mean, he's in a good place with Teresa right now. So yeah, he was not. What is he gonna do? I mean, Teresa won't even blame her husband, and Teresa's the one who's actually going to jail. So yeah, Joe really didn't have any choice. But it was like it happened. Like, you know, like he tracked some dog poop into the house. It happened. She's going to jail for 15 months.
To quote Joe Giudice, "It is what it is."
It is what it is.
Right. Well, how awesome was Jim Marchese whipping out Bobby's fanboy pictures from all those Housewives appearances?
No, that was pretty awesome, I have to say.
What's the context of that? First of all, why was Bobby posing with all the housewives?
Well, you know, I'm not going to argue with anybody who wants to, you know, snap a picture with a celebrity. And I actually thought it was actually a bit rude, because he's like, when he denied that he was being like a housewives talker, he's like, basically, it's like, I'm not a moron. Like, all the people who do show up for the housewives events are morons, which I hope he certainly didn't mean to say, because those people are probably also people who would-be fans of his. But what I love about the season and what Jim specifically is doing is showing us how the sausage gets made, showing us, like, this is how this guy cast, this is why he's getting cast, as opposed to Bravo, who would have us believe, oh, these are just people who know each other and they happen to be putting their lives. No, that's not how it works. And Jim is the one who's saying, you know, this is actually what happened, which I'm sure Bravo is not appreciative, and Bobby isn't appreciative.
Well, he's a little bit of a poison pill, I'd say. One thing we do know about Bobby is that who knew he was a Cecil B. DeMille and a Dr. Seuss fan?
Who knew? Who knew? Those are his two go-to storytellers. I mean, what does that say about him?
Well, recently you spoke with the Clash from Colts Neck himself, Jim Marchese. What can you tell us about that conversation? What kind of interview was it?
Well, I really wanted to do a profile of the guy who is arguably the breakout star of season 6, I would have to say. And, you know, he's unlike a lot of the housewives who I think are, Bravo kind of constricts what they can say, what they can't say, who they can, you know, what kind of interviews they can do. He doesn't seem to care, and he will talk to anybody. He tweets all the time. He will talk to anybody, but generally the interviews with him have been, you know, oh, are you really angry at Bobby? What's the deal? Are you a lawyer? Why do you wear sweater vests? And I just wanted to sort of get an idea of who this guy is and how he ended up on the show. And so I'm working on a profile for next week before the next reunion show. It was a very interesting 2.5-hour conversation.
Do you know when we're going to post that on NJ.com?
I think we're going to post it on Tuesday.
Okay, so we'll be on the lookout for that.
Got to finish writing it.
Yes. Switching gears, this week also saw the return of MTV's Snooki and JWoww. The network seems to be ringing the Jersey Shore washcloth one more time for this final season. Now, Vic, you were sort of down on this show from the beginning. I mean, we've had conversations about this many times. Explain why the show just didn't interest you.
Well, I actually recapped Jersey Shore for the first 5 seasons, and I lived to tell about it. I guess I'm the kind of reality show viewer who, as much as I'm admitting it right now, I like the drama about it. I'm not one of the people who watch the, like Manhood with Children, for example. You know, there's not a whole lot of drama going on. It's just the family being silly, and I really don't want to waste my time just watching goofy stuff. And that seemed to me what JWoww and what Snooki and JWoww was going to be about.
You know, I agree, because the first season, if I remember correctly, they were in 30-minute blocks, and it was them living in an apartment in Jersey City, and it really felt fabricated. And I think the network knew that, and so I think for the second and third season, they made it an hour, and it just followed them around, and I think it worked. We certainly got to see, you know, people I'm sure will, you know, rail on me later, but Snooki grew. I mean, you know, she's becoming a mom, and she's a really good mom, and we got to see that. And I like the show. I think it is silly. I think Roger is hilarious. I think Gianni's hilarious. I like it. So there, Vicki, I said it. How about you watch it next week, and we'll talk about it?
No, thank you.
All right. Well, Sunday night also marks the return for one of the more polarizing shows on TV, and I'm talking about HBO's The Newsroom, the Aaron Sorkin drama about a fictitious and fledgling cable network. Now, Vicki is sighing. After 2 seasons, HBO has given the series a final swan song of 6 episodes. Now, Vicki, I love the idea for this show, but unlike me, I know you're in the hate-watching group. Why does The Newsroom anger you and perhaps other people so much?
Well, I love The West Wing. I love The Social Network. I'm not an Aaron Sorkin hater generally. I'm a fan of West Wing when, you know, he has these hyper-literate, hyper-articulate characters go on these like long soliloquies about big issues. Maybe I'm too close to the subject, being in journalism in, you know, God help me, in its waning days. Right. So it hits very close to home for me. But I agree with Aaron Sorkin and what he's saying about the dumbing down of news, the cash for trash clicks. It just the way personalities are bigger than the actual news. I agree with all that, but the way he has his characters deliver these things is so insufferable. I just cringe every single time they open their mouths. I want to punch them in the face. They're so obnoxious about it. They're so pious about it. And for me, it just overwhelms anything else he's saying on the show.
Well, do the Sorkinisms bother you? I guess you could say that's a Sorkinism in and of itself.
That's like the big Sorkinism, but no, right. The little Sorkinism, like the walk and talks and the way, well, actually, the way that all the characters are able to pull these incredibly arcane facts out of the air grates on me, but not as much as the grand obnoxious soliloquies do. Other than that, no, I'm really not bothered by it.
Other than that, you love the show.
Oh, yes.
Without going into any spoilers, I mean, Sorkin usually takes a real-life news event and dissects how the media may have covered it by using the characters on the show. Now, we kick off the season premiere with it being the Boston Marathon bombing. Now, what angered you about that in particular?
Well, I mean, you were actually there when it broke, so you know that it was very, very swiftly changing, and on the show, I watched the first 3 episodes. On the show, they decided to hold back on reporting anything until they could get it officially confirmed, which, I'm not saying is a bad thing, is a bad way to go about it. But they had a lot of younger staffers on the show who were like, we have all these confirmed tweets saying there was an explosion there. Can we go with it? Can we go with it? And they kept on getting sort of like the finger wagging from the older people saying, no, I'm not going to rely on unofficial sources, and I'm not going to rely on people who we can't verify, which, again, I kind of agree with, but just the way it's done is obnoxious.
Well, a year or 2 ago, I forget which, I wrote a piece that defended the show, mainly to critics, because, it was mainly critics that didn't like the show, I was finding, possibly because they work in newsrooms. What would the newsroom have to do to redeem itself in your eyes?
I guess the other thing that's really aggravating is because they're doing it in hindsight. Almost always the people on the newsroom make the correct choices, and that just doesn't happen in real life. And so if they could stumble a little bit, like certainly in the last season, they they were duped by a source. So yes, that was a really big fall, and they lost a lot of viewers, and they're kind of trying to get back from that now. So yes, they made a really big faux pas last season, but they've just got to, I guess, react in a real way as opposed to the hindsight way. That would make it better for me. Now, I have to say that Aaron Sorkin does have a lot of critics who say that he doesn't write real women. The women are always, they're falling all over themselves. They're stupid. They're just there to support the grand men who, who are so smart and so wonderful. And he did transform the character played by Alison Pill so far in the first 3 episodes I saw. So she's actually making decisions, making correct moral decisions without the benefit of some, old guy telling her this is the way you should do it. So.
Now, I saw the first episode. I didn't have a chance to watch all 3. But it seems like they're making Chris Messina, who is on the Mindy Project.
I love him.
he's become like a really good character actor, I think. And it seems like they're softening up the character this season, and they started to do it last season, but it seems like, at least as far as what I saw in the first season, they're really softening him up a bit. What do you think?
Well, yeah, it's really, they have to, because part of the plot for the 3rd season is that there's a hostile takeover planned of their news network, and it's by Reese Lansing, who's the son of the woman who owns Atlantic's news, the news network, played by Jane Fonda. So his half-brother and sister are turning 25, and they've secretly bought up some shares, and they're going to sell the company, basically strip it for parts. So he had to sort of very weirdly and suddenly become the white knight of this cable news network, and like, yes, news doesn't make money, but we still have to have it on the air, and it's like, I'm sorry, weren't you the, I can't say that word, weren't you the jerk from the first 2 seasons? So it didn't make much sense, but I understand why they had to do it.
All right. Well, Vicki, as always, it has been a pleasure doing this water cooler thing with you. That's about it for us today, but we'll be back Wednesday.
Wednesday for a live chat, because the final Real Housewives reunion show, yay, is Tuesday night at 8 p.m.
All right. Well, then see you then, everyone, and thanks again for watching.
Thanks.